the National Biosafety Authority. What do you do and what is your mandate?
Yeah, thank you again. So the use of genetically modified organisms, which I believe I'll have the opportunity to explain,
Yes.
is growing very fast all over the world. And the likelihood of genetically modified organisms going anywhere is very high because it is a big business. They are used in several fields. And so the government of Ghana thought of establishing, first of all, passing a law in 2011. In fact, the idea came around 2002.
Yes.
But the law was finally passed in 2011. And the law established the Biosafety Authority. One, we make decisions. Decision meaning we approve or deny genetically modified organisms after doing risk assessment. And we keep every data that concerns the use of genetically modified organisms with us so that according to the law, in case anybody needs it, upon request, we have to release the data and the information.
Okay.
We also serve as the focal point for biosafety and biotechnology for Ghana. So all international organizations that are interested in GMO business, whether research or industry, we represent government, in that field. And then the fourth is for us to educate the public, the people of Ghana on GMO issues, like we are here this morning to do.
Fantastic.
So these are the functions
of the National Biosafety Authority. Yeah. So when we mention GMOs, genetically modified organisms, what are they and are they safe?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the best way for one to understand genetically modified organisms is, to explain it. I will not attempt to define it. Explaining will bring out the meaning very well. So you see that we have something like pepper. Pepper is very hot, even though there's no fire in it, but there's some substance in it that irritates your tongue and your mouth and your eyes when it touches it. Yes, it burns. What is happening is that it has a certain gene that gives the command for the coding and preparation of that kind of substance. That particular gene is not in sugarcane. So sugarcane is not as hot as pepper. However, sugarcane also has something that pepper doesn't have. It is sweet, very sweet. The level of sugar in sugarcane is very sweet.
Yes.
So sugarcane has a certain gene, which is different from that of pepper.
Yes.
That makes it code for sweetness.
Yes.
So where in genetic engineering, science has developed so that to an extent that scientists can sequence the gene in any organism and identify the function of each gene. So in genetic engineering, the gene for coding for hotness in pepper can be taken from pepper and put in sugarcane. So that you can have
hot sugar.
Yes, you can have a sugarcane that is that sweet and that hot, which will be pleasing to some people because they like sweetness and they like hot things. When you take the gene from pepper and put it in sugarcane, for that sugarcane also to be hot, you have genetically modified it. So it has become a genetically modified organism.
So is it just to meet human preference and taste?
Not preference and taste, to solve a problem, human problem, and to meet a certain preference. So it is applied in agriculture. Some plants can grow in desert areas. They have that gene that makes them develop the kind of fruit that can reach the water level. So that they can get the water no matter how dry the desert is. And here in the tropics, where we have rains all the time, sometimes there's drought. So our plants die because they don't have that one. So if you want to have our crops, maize and whatever plant we have, and therefore drying because of the drought, it's a matter of going to the desert, picking a plant, taking that gene that helps it survive in the desert, putting it in our crops so that they can stand drought. So when you do that, you have genetically modified those crops. And they are done in order to solve agricultural problems.
But does it come with its attendant side effect?
It could.
Because if you move things from this natural habitat,
yes,
even for those who do body surgeries, when you move fat from one part of their body to the next, it doesn't always give a good reaction.
Yeah, so that is why there is law. You can't do these things sitting at your own corner and doing your own things. There is law, and that law takes its level from the United Nations, because there's a special convention protocol under the Convention on Biological Diversity that says that those kind of crops that have been modified must be regulated. So Ghana domesticated this by passing a law. So that is why there is the Ghana Biosafety Authority. That is the work we do. When it is done, we ensure that they are safe before they come to the public. So to answer your second question on that,
Yes.
when a genetically modified organism is prepared that way, and it passes through the regulatory system, and we do the risk assessment, and we get satisfied, and we put our stamp on it that it is safe. It is as safe as the conventional counterpart. There is no difference. So it is that safe if it has passed into our hands. And if it has not passed through the biosafety regulatory system, nobody has seen it before, and it's on the market somewhere, and it has not been looked at and assessed by anybody, nobody will stand out and say it is safe. That
Okay.
could not be safe, yes.
So, what are the aspects of GMOs that you regulate?
Okay, so the objective is to ensure our objective and that of the law is to ensure the safe development, use, transfer, and handling of genetically modified organisms. So we regulate GMOs when they are being prepared. When the scientist is sequencing the gene, identifying the gene, putting it in a particular recipient crop in the lab. It takes place at the genetic level, at the cell level. That one, we call it contained use activity. And we regulate that. At that level, it has to be contained in the lab. It doesn't have to come out. And our duty is to make sure that it is confined and contained in that laboratory. How they do it is their business. Our duty is to make sure that they do it well and it stays in the lab. At that point, no human being is supposed to eat it. So we regulate it at that point. When they finish, they bring it out to the field to try whether it can stand the environmental conditions that it's going to face. If it's in Ghana, we call that confined field trial. So they apply, they come back to us again and apply for confined field trial permit. Here we look at, we give them, or they tell us where they want to do it, in a certain area, and we take the coordinates of that area. We give them conditions that will make them remain in that area. Because at that point, it has not been assessed for its food. So it doesn't go out. So confined field trial, in the field all right, in the environment all right, but contained. And there is exposed to all the hardships and whatever they want to overcome.
The weather conditions,
The weather
no matter how
conditions
harsh.
and everything. Now that is confined field trial. The third and the fourth are environmental release and food assessment. Now it's going to human beings. So we do food safety assessment. And in here, we look at what we focus on is that we want to make sure all the components of that crop, if it's maize, the level of carbohydrate in it, is it the same as the conventional counterpart? The level of protein, maize is basically carbohydrate, but there's some small level of protein in it. Is it the same as what the conventional counterparts have? There's some level of lipids, in proteins, in maize. Is it the same as what the conventional counterpart has? Now, what we do is that we make sure there is no significant difference between the GMO in terms of these components and the conventional counterparts. When we assess that, then the focus goes to the other gene, the gene that has modified it. So we look at how safe that gene is. So we look at which organism donated it. It's coming from where? So we look at that organism. Is it pathogenic? Has it been dangerous? And is that gene coming from that organism safe? Can it code for anything other than what we want it, we expect it to code for? We assess all that. It is when we are very satisfied and know that it is safe and it is the same as a conventional that we give it out. I mean, we approve it. Then it has to go to the environment to be planted by farmers. There, we also look at the environmental impact assessment of it, how risk is, the kind of risk it's going to posed in the environment. Here we want to prevent gene flow. See, if the GMO is here, if it's maize and another maize is somewhere, the genes of the GMO should not travel to that conventional field. And in science, we have studied the distance that are required.
Yes.
Because we know how far the pollen can fly or glide in air. If it has to use vector, we study the biology of the vector. Vector, most of the time, are insects or mammals. We know we study the biology. We know how far it can travel or it can fly. So we give a distance, to isolate.
Okay.
So that is the work we do. And until we make sure that all these things are done, we don't put our stamp on it.
How is the safety of GM foods conducted? And is it different from conventional foods?
Yes, so it's just like I have said, conventional GM food is basically the same as the conventional.
Is it?
Yes, except the other gene. If it is maize, you have food from GMO maize and food from conventional maize. It's basically the same as the conventional. The difference here is the other gene. So the same way you assess the conventional food to make sure it's safe is the same way you assess the GMO food to make sure it's safe. At that point, I said we don't expect any significant difference between them. Then the difference here, that means GMO difference, is the added gene. So we go in there. Is the gene pathogenic? Can it code for anything apart from, let's say, the crop being resistant to drought? Can it code for anything apart from the crop being resistant to insects, for which reason it was modified? So we assess the gene, look at how safe it is, and make sure that it doesn't code for any other thing apart from the purpose for which it has been transferred for. So the difference here is the other gene and its safety. That is what makes GMO food different from conventional food. Otherwise, they are all the same.
What are the main issues of concern for human health when it comes to GMO?
Yeah, so the concern is that, you see, the gene is from somewhere and added to a crop, to be consumed by human beings.
Yes.
So we ask ourselves, has it coded for any antigen? Has it coded for something that we can describe as a toxin that can be lethal to human beings when they eat it? So we look at that and we answer that question.
Well, are there GMOs that have that?
They will never come out. GMOs that are approved don't have those things because that's why the biosafety systems are all over the world and they approve it. And you see that assessment is done by the technical advisory committee, made up of different kinds of scientists with different backgrounds and expertise. So they do that scientific work, and they give scientific advice to the decision-making body, which is the board. So we make sure that we assess the toxicity. There's no toxin in it. We make sure we assess whether there's any antigen that can create any problem for anybody, to make sure there's nothing like that. And then if it is maize, you realize that some people don't eat maize because they react.
Yes.
They are allergic.
Yes.
And that is a concern for human health. So we make sure that GMO, people who are naturally allergenic to maize, if they eat and they are still allergenic, that's not a concern because that is normal.
Yes.
So we don't normally frown on that.
But if they eat and they are not allergic?
No, those who are not allergic, if now they eat the GMO and they will be allergic, that is a concern. And if we detect that that is going to be the case, we don't allow it at all.
Or even for those who eat and they are allergic?
Now, so
once they eat and they are no longer allergic?
Very good. So if somehow it's not likely to happen, and we haven't experienced that. So if those who are allergic, now they eat the GMOs and they are not allergic, that tells me and you that they will go for that one because they can eat it and they are better.
Yes.
You see, they will go for that one, but we haven't experienced that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, just so I'm clear, this is a bit off key, but I've still got to ask, because people still have their premonitions and main concerns when it comes to GMOs.
Yeah.
If I'm to go buy food, could be rice, could be maize, and I go and I'm told this is the conventional rice that exists, and this is the GMO rice that exists, what will be anyone's aversion or a reason to not choose GMO and choose conventional? And the reverse is equally true. Why would anyone want to pick GMO and not the conventional?
Right. So, from the experience we have had, one will choose the conventional and not the GMO because of the perception the person has.
Is it just perception?
Yes. The perception. What the person has heard and what the person has been made to believe. So the person will assume that this is GMO. I have seen the picture of GMO with syringe, and I have heard that they draw a fluid from lizard and they inject it into these tomatoes and they become GMO. Those kind of stories are going on. So perceptions have been skewed towards those kind of things. So that could be one of the reasons why somebody may not choose it. In any case, if you are not told that this is GMO and this is non-GMO, even though they are all rice, you will not see it, you will not know.
I've heard people who have said that certain fruits that exist, the GMO ones are fatter, bigger, more imposing, more red. If it's tomatoes, it looks very different than the conventional
Those
one.
are misinformation.
Are you sure?
When we put GMO maize here and non-GMO maize, you can't make the difference out.
Same for tomatoes?
Yes, when you put GMO tomatoes here and you put non-GMO, you can't make any difference unless you take it to the lab or unless it is labeled.
Even the taste?
Yes, because it has not been engineered for its taste. But let me go to the question because it was interesting. So perception is basically the reason why somebody will not choose GMO. And then the case of somebody choosing GMO and not
The conventional.
the conventional, if it's maize or if it's whatever, the person again may have perception or knowledge. You see, as I explained, GMOs do not come to the market until it has passed through a thorough, robust assessment. And so when it comes to the market, it has been assessed very, very well. The conventional has not been assessed that much. Who has assessed? If there is maize at the market from the farm, it hasn't even gone through Food and Drugs Authority's system, unless it's processed and it's coming from a factory. But if from the farm, somebody has brought it from a jura and it's come to the market, there has not been that assessment. So the person may think that, okay, according to my knowledge, this GMO has been assessed, this has not been assessed. And I know that there is no difference between a GMO and this this non-GMO. I know that when I eat GMO, because it has been regulated and declared safe, nothing will happen to me. Many people have been eating it all over the world, and they are fine. So the person will buy it. Probably one thing that can cause somebody to choose the GMO may be that sometimes they appear cleaner. They appear cleaner.
Really?
Yes, let me give you an example. You know that cowpea is vulnerable when it comes to weevil infestation. And you know very well when we were in boarding school,
Yes.
and they gave us the gobe, you could count the number of weevils in it.
Yes.
GMO may have a gene that resists weevils. And let me say that currently the Savannah Agricultural Research Institute is working on that kind of thing. A GMO that weevils cannot attack. If such a thing comes out and it's on the market, and you go and you see this clean and neat, and you see the ones that have come from wherever with holes in it, naturally you choose the one that you see to be healthy.
To be clean.
To be,
But there are some too who say that if the weevil likes what I'm eating, it means it is good.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not eating the one that is modified, then it means it's not good.
Yeah. So well, it depends on I mean how it has been marketed and the understanding that the public have been given.
Has come with it. Okay.
Yes.
How does the authority collaborate with other regulatory bodies to achieve its mandate?
Yeah, so you see, the biosafety law came in 2011, and the authority was implemented or established in 2015.
Yes.
And before, in fact, I like, and I'll always pay tribute to the late Justice Crabb, who was the drafter of the law.
Justice VCRA Crab.
That's right. He was a drafter of the law, and he was, supported by the National Biosafety Committee.
Yes.
They provided the technical information, and Justice Crabb and his team, they put it in the legal language. At that point in 2002, there was an idea of linking the operations of the National Biosafety Authority to some already related regulatory bodies so that they can work hand in hand. So now we have the Food and Drugs Authority. We have GMO food. The Biosafety Authority's concern is the gene that has modified it. So we assess the safety of the gene. And on the Technical Advisory Committee, Food and Drugs Authority is represented. So the food safety aspect, they provide the technical expertise on that. And that is an arrangement in the law. And GMOs are trade materials. They cross borders. When they cross borders and they come, for example, to Ghana, they must be received at the port, and the institution to do that is customs, GRA customs. So we have GRA customs, 7 on the board to make decision, and also 7 on the technical advisory committee to advise on how GMOs can cross the border. So the law has made it said that that arrangement is there. So we work with customs. And there are some standards that are required, in regulation and in the use of things in Ghana. And standards are provided by the Ghana Standards Authority. So all standards on GMOs are done by Ghana Standards Authority. Okay. After we saying that the gene is safe, Ghana Standards Authority advises on the standards. And then GMOs may be introduced into the environment on a large scale, in which case one may need to know the environmental impact assessment. So the law has linked our operations with that of the Environmental Protection Agency.
EPA.
So they serve on the Technical Advisory Committee. Yeah. And GMOs are not always plants. We have GMO animals.
Oh.
Yes, we can talk of GMO salmon, which is not in Africa, it's in the United States and Canada. And we have GMO mosquito. To fight and combat.
And mosquito was caught and modified.
Yes.
Wow.
And that is it has been modified to reduce malaria. We are not into that, so I will not go.
Do we have them here now?
No, we don't have them in Ghana, but they are in
When
Burkina
are they
Faso.
coming?
They are being researched on in Mali and Burkina Faso.
Okay.
Ghana.
And with that, it can eradicate malaria?
Yes, they can. Because in Southern America, they have been able to reduce significantly SIGA and dengue, which are malaria-related diseases. So, and they are being researched on in Burkina Faso. Ghana may start their research, I don't know when. So these are animals. So the law said the Biosafety Authority should operate together with Veterinary Services Directorate. So that in case the GMO is an animal, Veterinary Services Directorate will give support to the Biosafety Authority to regulate it. And we will also deal with the public, public education, public understanding of the sciences. So we have been made to operate with the district assemblies. So we have 7 regulatory agencies we are dealing with.
All right. And does our safety assessment of GM products meet international standards?
Yes. You see, what is happening is that internationally there are some agreed standards. When it comes to food, you look at the codex, which is basically what one of the conventional sources of information for Food and Drugs Authority. That codex provisions are used also by the Biosafety Authority when it comes to GM food, and that is very international. And then when you look at the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, which is under the Convention on Biological Diversity, an extray of that is how risk assessment has to be done. And that is very international. That is what is done everywhere. So how we do the risk assessment in Ghana is how it is done everywhere in this
around
world.
the world. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, time has crept up very quickly on us. Let me share a science fun fact for the morning, and then I'll ask my very last question. Artificial intelligence can spot COVID-19 in lung and ultrasound images, much like facial recognition can spot a face in a crowd. Yes, that's where AI is now when it comes to COVID-19. It can spot COVID-19 in lung ultrasound images, just like facial recognition software can spot a face in a crowd. All right, my last question, sir, as we end our conversation. What further developments can be expected in the area of GMOs?
Yeah, thank you very much. So you see, I explained in the morning how GMOs are created by picking a gene from somewhere and putting it in another crop.
Yes.
A gene from for example, pepper, and I said it could be put in sugar cane so that it could be sweet and hot.
Is that happening already?
No, that's not happening. I use that as an explanation for anybody to simply understand. Now that is a classical kind of GM work, gene transfer, gene modification. That's a classical part. Now there is this side that does not employ that kind of approach. There's genome editing. The organism is there. So scientists can shut off certain genes for whatever is creating a problem or an inability in an organism or a plant or an animal to shut down so that that plant or animal can do whatever it is supposed to do better. And in that particular organism, scientists can change the position of certain genes so that the organism can perform in a manner that is required, to solve a problem confronting man. And so that kind of genome editing is going on.
Okay.
Here there's no gene transfer, but editing the genes in a particular organism is what is going on now. And that is an emerging technology in the field.
All right.
And going forward, and as you ask, GM mosquitoes are coming in, and that technology, we call it gene drive. It's not in Ghana. Africa, I know of Burkina Faso and Mali. It is gaining ground. So that are the next dimension
that we should be looking
to use gene drive and genome editing to produce GMOs to help solve problems. But both are regulated. And I must say, before I leave here, that the Biosafety Authority is preparing itself, or has prepared itself, to regulate these emerging technologies.
As they emerge.
As they emerge, we will simply handle them.
Fantastic. Dr. Eric Amening Okoria, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you
and for joining us. The Chief Executive Officer of the National Biosafety Authority. That's it for us this morning here on The Morning Star. Thank you all for listening and for connecting with